Oh, recording in progress. That means we're about to get started. Uh, um, Hi, everyone. Welcome to both the last week of Code in Place and our very final event in the speaker series. And just before we jump into it, a wonderful thank you to John and Amelie who helped put on this speaker series, um, as well as the mountains of people who have been helping to make Code in Place happen. You guys probably can imagine this, but to make a class with the most teachers in the world, there's a whole bunch of things that goes into it. First of all, we need you, the students, to do so much work. And then we have the section leaders who go teach. But beyond this ecosystem, there's a whole bunch of wonderful people. There's folks who've made course content, but also in charge of the almost 1,000 section leaders. We have a team of head TAs, and they train the section leaders. They're there to hold office hours for the section leaders. So if they have questions about teaching or content, they can go to this wonderful set of folks, the head TAs. And a lot of them have been section leaders at some point too, and they can talk to you about the journeys that they've been on, which speaks to some journeys that you might also find interesting. So Code in Place, what a wonderful ecosystem of folks helping each other on all levels. And we're really, really lucky that a few of those head TAs decided to put together this wonderful event to tell you about pathways in Code in Place. So I'd like to say a really, really warm welcome. And if you could in the chat, give a warm welcome to Caroline and Inessa. They're going to be telling you about their journeys. If you have questions, you can ask them in the Q&A and they'll answer them at the end. And with that, can I hand the floor over to you guys? Thanks so much for putting this on, everybody. And I look forward to hearing.
Yeah, hi everyone, welcome. We're really excited to talk with you today. This is going to be very casual, so please send us your questions. We want to help you. And so we put together some questions beforehand, but we'll also go back and forth between the chat and the Q&A. If you have questions, I think it's easier for us to handle if you submit a question in the Q&A instead of the chat because lots of things are moving. But yeah, let's get started. Okay, so we're missing one panelist, but that's okay. It'll just be me and Inessa today, and we'll get started. So I'm a fourth-year undergraduate at Stanford, and this summer I'll be a software engineer intern at Nintendo. So I'm very excited for that. Inessa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Inessa, and I'm a data analyst, and I'm actually taking a non-degree class because my undergraduate degree was in psychology.
Okay. All right, so just a really quick, introduction to myself. I am a first-generation college student, so my parents never got to finish middle school, let alone go to professional school. And so I'm the first person in my family to ever even graduate college. I'm very excited about that. I'll be walking with my friends this summer, and so that's something I'm really looking forward to. I'm also a huge advocate for making space and empowering women and marginalized communities to take on leadership positions, especially in tech. And so these are some stickers that I've been doodling and I've been passing it out to everyone that I know. I also really like to paint in my free time. And so I've been face painting for fundraisers, birthday parties, and I'm excited for the summer because that's my busiest season. As you can see, I really like to draw, and I was able to apply this passion for art with my passion for CS. Not particularly in graphics, but I really love to work on the user interface. So anything that the user interacts with, I really love creating those things. I actually came into college wanting to be a dentist, which is crazy because I took 106A with Chris and it completely changed my mind. And then I came back as a section leader for Code in Place, which I so loved because that was where I could pour in my love for art and I was able to make all these visuals. That was really fun in the teaching. And I got to communicate with a lot of people throughout the pandemic. Now I am so privileged and honored to hold a leadership position where I can interact with other section leaders and be a part of the journey, the teaching journey that they are starting up.
And I am also a first generation college student, actually. So go Seawolves. I went to Stony Brook University. I grew up in Brooklyn, so that's what the clown face is. He's the Coney Island mascot. And in my free time, I'm really into music and I'm getting into fitness. One thing that I didn't put here, but that has been very important to me is disability studies. That was a huge focus for me in undergrad and definitely something that I like to bring in even into the tech world, thinking about accessibility. And my coding journey, my first lines of code I ever wrote were in Code in Place in 2020. And that's after taking a basic computer course, which was my last course in college. So funny how that turned out. And I continued learning, including a program called Data Science for All, UX training, just dipping my toes in the water, trying different things. I also became a section leader in 2021, and it was such a wonderful experience. I decided I really want to pivot into tech. So I applied for different internships in analytics, social media, just trying different things. And as a head TA now, I get to combine my experience with teaching. I help teach a data analytics class and with project management. So I still have a long journey ahead. I'm just beginning.
Hi, I'm sorry, I was facing internet issues. My stuff, okay. So, first of all, I really like cats. That's why I have a picture of a cat here. I'm also learning Japanese and I love reading books as a hobby. I'm from India and a major part of what I do is related to my identity as someone who is autistic. And I think since I got to know about that recently, I've been trying to advocate for more autism accessibility and representation in tech. So I've also put the neurodiversity symbol in my slide. So can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So actually, I started coding since 8th grade when I was 14. And my introduction to programming was with HTML, which I know people might not consider a program. There, I was asked to represent my school in coding competitions. And we didn't have too many girls coding. We were just 13 people in the entire batch. So I felt like there wasn't too much of competition, I mean, healthy competition to help me push myself. So I did feel like I did get a little complacent in school. I felt like I'm in a comfortable place. But once I graduated from school and I started pursuing my degree in CS, I'm a CS computer science engineer. I realized that there's so much more that I need to learn. There's so much more that I don't know about. And I just had no idea what the whole world of coding is like out there. And in 2021, I became a section leader at Code in Place. And this is because I was really interested in teaching. I really like mentoring people. I like teaching people how to code. And this was the first time I had experienced actually teaching people, and I loved it. And I think Code in Place has been one of the most exciting opportunities of my college life. And I made a bunch of friends, including Patricia. I made a lot of friends among the section leaders who I can see right now. They've returned as section leaders in 2023, and I think that's super cool. After being a section leader, I also interned at some big tech company, Google actually. And then I started a coding community in my college, which was the Google Developer Students Club. And as part of this community, I was able to promote coding and ethical software development to people. So something that I think I like to place a lot of emphasis on is the fact that, in today's world, software is really important. It rules the world almost. And especially as people who are working with software, people who are developing software, we have a huge responsibility, huge accountability towards what we're creating. And I think when we are learning about software, when we're learning about what to create and how to create, one of the things that we might miss out on keeping in mind is whether we should be creating what we're creating and what the implications of what we're creating are. So that is something that I got to explore as a GDSC lead. I got to work with a team of people, a team of amazing coders who were also involved in creating a healthy coding atmosphere on campus. And I think it was this experience that allowed me to apply for a head TA position here, because I remember that reading the job description, a lot of the qualifications were about how you can manage a team, how you can manage logistics. And I thought, I've done this before. And that gave me the confidence to actually apply. And I gave the interview, and here I am right now, and I'm loving it. I am glad to be back in this community. I'm glad to be back in this program. And I think apart from coding, one other thing that defines me is leadership, and also empowering the communities that I care about, like women in tech and autistic in tech. And because of these initiatives, I had also been awarded a scholarship from my college for being a woman leader. And I think all these experiences have shaped me in a very different direction than what I imagined would happen when I first started coding, or when I first joined, when I first started my engineering degree. And I think I'm very excited to see what direction all of you go in after Code in Place, and how you make use of what you learn here, and how you're going to shape the world after this.
All right. We'll move on to the questions now. One big question that was very common is, what inspires you to code? I think, Sanjana, you had a lot of this, but you can also sum that up, or if anyone else wants to.
So I actually started coding very early. I don't think I knew what coding was when I started coding. What actually inspired me to code is the fact that it's got very clear rules. It's very logical. And I felt like it's something that I can relate to. It's something that makes sense to me. I really like solving puzzles. I really like these mathematical things that I think about. And that's why I decided to code. And I realized that just solving these problems can make you create, it allows you to create such amazing things. And you can do anything with coding. Like these days, we're seeing some crazy things out there. And I think that's what inspired me to code. Actually, the reason why I started coding is because I thought someday I'm going to build robots. That has not happened, but maybe someday.
And you had mentioned earlier that there's a lack of women in tech. That's one of the things that inspires me to code, because I'd love to be able to, I guess, break those glass ceilings for other people as well. My high school actually did offer one class, but I didn't even know about it until after graduation. They had only told a few of the boys about it. And I think that's part of what inspires me to do it now, because I want to prove them wrong, even if I didn't have those opportunities when I was younger. That now I know that I can do it.
I do a lot of tutoring. So during COVID, I was tutoring a lot of students, especially students who learned English as a second language. And I realized that a lot of the apps that schools were using for them to submit their work, to attend lecture, like it was really, really hard for them to navigate, especially as students who might have never had access to iPads and laptops before. And so for me, I think I was inspired to work in software and also in like the user interface side of it because I wanted to make it more accessible for everyone who does use it. Obviously, it can't be accessible to everyone, but I think it's like a great start to be thinking about that. And so that's what inspired me to code. Okay, so this was a very popular question. Was it hard starting CS or switching careers? What were some support and resource systems that you used and found super helpful? And how did you guys practice coding and teaching? I can start off with the switching careers part, and then you guys can chime in whenever. I personally came in wanting to be a dentist, so I was a chemistry major. I was in research labs, and so for me, switching to computer science was really hard. But then when everything went remote, I think like I was able to prevent myself from being psyched out by how hard computer science is. I think like it's a very intimidating thing to start learning. And so for me, I came in not even talking to anybody about these CS classes, not asking if it's hard, because I think like learning anything new will be hard, especially when you're switching over. So I think like once I've accepted that it's going to be hard, I think like that was the biggest thing that I had to jump over for switching careers. And that really helps me like really focus on what I'm learning and not what like people are saying about how hard this might be.
For me, I found it a little bit more difficult because there are certain programs that are only open to college students, and I was finishing up with that right around the time when I first started with computer science. But some of the greatest resources I found to be helpful were people I knew that were already doing computer science. One of my friends even told me, she went, you know, it's not that you can't do it, it's that nobody taught you to do it younger. Some of us were doing this since we were kids, or our parents were into math, gave us computers. So the only difference is that you've had less time to start. And I thought that was also really inspiring and definitely helped me. And of course, Code in Place as a good resource because that was where I first started learning. One tool that I used to practice was this program called Raptor. The first computer class I took, it was the only class I took in a formal college setting. We use that, and it's kind of a tool to do flowcharts. So it taught us a little bit about loops or yes, no answers and how a computer thinks.
For me, I started CS as it was part of my school curriculum. So I do think starting something so young does make it easier because firstly, you're studying it for school. So it's not like you have a choice to not study. And also, when you're young, you're less scared. You're less scared of failing and you feel like you've got more time. And so I don't think it was very hard for me to start with CS. What support or resources I found helpful? Of course, I did have my school textbooks and everything, but I think there is one online resource that I often consult, and that is MIT OpenCourseWare videos. I think that those videos, watching the lectures, they helped me realize how much I love CS. And I think the discussions there, the problems that they talk about, I think they were very helpful to me when I was learning CS. And for what tools, I'm a little old, but I don't like using very fancy tools. A lot of people use VS Code. You'll find me coding in Vim, and it's a little unconventional, but I do use I did practice DSA on lead code. So it's like practicing problem solving. Apart from that, I did a little bit of software development, and that was mostly in Java. So just a code editor is fine.
All right, so what are some memories that you guys have from Code in Place throughout your many experiences? And I think like one of the questions that were submitted specifically, what are some things that you learned as like a teacher, but also as someone who worked on the logistical side? I think like one of the things that I learned is that I learned really well through teaching. Like there were some times where I was just stumped in section and I was like, ooh, that's a very good question. I never even thought about that. And so I think like while you're practicing teaching, it's also great to keep an open mind and be able to learn as you go. Because I feel like students teach you so much as well.
One thing I learned was how to teach to people of different coding levels. I think especially in a program like Code in Place, people are coming in with completely different levels. There's people who come in like me, never having seen a line of code. And there were people coming in who already code really well, but in another programming language. So I had to learn how to kind of cater to everybody in the class. And also students come in with different learning styles, which might not be the same as your learning style or my learning style. So that there's always a little bit of learning with each class that you're going to teach, how different students learn best, getting to know them, getting to learn their learning styles.
I think something that I really found incredible when I was a section leader at CIP was some people made insanely cool slides, and they really helped me when I was taking my sections. And I think these slides took a lot of work. They took a lot of creativity and effort. And I think it's amazing that they did that. And not only did they create those slides, but they also shared them with other section leaders on the forum, so everyone else could benefit from it. And I think it taught me how to teach better. It taught me how to understand the objective of the section better. And also, one of my favorite memories from Code in Place is, so I made a friend here, Patricia, and you might know her. She's actually part of the team, and she makes jewelry, coding inspired jewelry. She's got a page, Empowered Codes. Now, when I met her, she hadn't started creating that yet. Like she hadn't got the page yet, but she was just creating the jewelry. And when we started talking, she actually mailed me a few bracelets and a pair of earrings. And I think that was so sweet. And I think that's like proof that you can make some really good friendships here as well. And during the pandemic, when everyone is socially distanced and we're not really getting to see much of campus, we're not really enjoying as students much. It's really nice to remember that there are other ways of creating friendships as well.
Just really quickly, what are some skills that you use that aren't coding that has been useful in your coding career, your code learning, and also like maybe even in teaching? I can get started, but like I said before, I really like to draw. And so a lot of the time I have to draw the stacks, I have to draw what's happening, what's being passed around. And sometimes that comes in the form of mind maps, or it comes in the form of like just like a series of steps. And so for me, I'm a very visual person. I think like drawing it out really helps. And that's what I've used a lot in teaching, but also in like my own personal learning.
So I think one of my skills that has come in handy is networking. That's not really very, I'm not sure if that's very coding related. I mean, it's not, but so I like meeting people who have done interesting things. And I don't meet them for the sake of getting something out of it. I don't feel like I'm looking for something specific, but it's just really cool hearing about their experiences. It's really cool hearing about their different thought processes. And some way or the other, these things, other people's experiences have shaped how I think as well. And it has, I think, it's led me to make better decisions later on or not make certain mistakes. And I think networking as a skill, I think, sure, there was luck involved in a lot of things that I do, but I do think that if you're good at talking to people, if you're good at communication, then you can get a lot of things that makes a lot of things a lot easier.
And on the data analysis side of things, whether it's doing data analysis using different programs or using code, I think a relevant skill was digital arts. I did digital arts for a while and the UX training because it helps you to figure out how to best visualize data and information. And in addition, I mentioned earlier, I did disability studies. I think that helped, I guess, shape how I see things in terms of maybe biases in data or biases on how things are presented to try to prevent that. And another relevant skill, I had friends that told me that it's easier to learn to code if you're bilingual or multilingual. And I thought that was interesting because I guess it's maybe just the way that we've already learned how to switch between languages that helps. Yeah.
I can think of another skill that actually has helped, and that's documentation. So if you can actually write a lot of documents on your code and how it's working and what you're planning to do and what requirements you have. Basically, if anyone who is completely not related to your project can read the documents and understand everything about it, then I think it explains what you're doing to yourself as well, because then you have a much clearer idea of how you should go about things.
Okay, super popular question. What's next? So what can students and SLs from Code in Place do to further develop their own communities and bring this to their communities, but also to like expand their learning? Sorry, I never know who's starting, so I'll just do it. But we're all head TAs. We've been part of Code in Place for a very long time. And so we encourage you to apply again to become section leaders or even head TAs. I think like whenever positions are available, they'll definitely reach out to you via email. So keep that email, like keep checking your email. I think another thing is like encouraging others to also take the class. I encouraged many people. I have my aunt who is a 42-year-old woman who is like a doctor and has never touched anything related to computers ever. She's scared of them. She doesn't like to use them. And she's scared of coding. Like it's very intimidating to her. And so I was able to encourage her to take this course and she actually fell in love with it. They love it. And so like I think like encouraging people to take this course is a very great step because this is the best community to start your coding journey. So yeah.
I mean, of course, a lot of people have actually sent this as feedback that we wish this program was longer. We wish we had the entire course available in Code in Place. So we know that we haven't covered everything. We haven't been able to cover everything, but that doesn't mean that you won't be able to learn these things by yourself later on. In fact, I remember in 2021, after Code in Place ended, there was someone who created a Discord server I forget the name of the server. I think it was Beyond Code in Place or something. And there, everyone joined with they made this pledge that they're going to learn together, and they made smaller groups based on whichever field interested them, and they would share resources and understand, learn together and explain problems to each other together. And that just kept the spirit of Code in Place alive even after the program ended. And I think that was awesome. And I think if it's possible, you could even try it out this year as well.
And one thing that you can do is see if someone in your community has a community center or other resource available where you can teach or tutor if you want to contribute to your own local community. And like everyone else mentioned, come back, section lead, teach the next generation of Code in Place students.
If you guys have some time, I still have some time. We can start looking at the Q&A questions. I've just been replying to them as I see them. If you guys want to just choose some and then just talk about it. But. Oh, here's one. Someone asked if you're allowed to take the course again. So a lot of the course content is repeated, and so I don't know if you'll be able to retake it, but we do encourage you to become a section leader and share that knowledge with everyone else. Sanjana, I think there's a question that's like just for you in the Q&A.
Yeah, about the Discord, I'll just check if I have it. But in case I don't, I think I saw one Discord being created on the forum as well.
Okay. And then another question, do you have any challenges you have to overcome when you present yourself to the world, like related to your persona, your social identity of a coder, and in a world that's so diverse culturally, do you face any of those challenges?
Yeah, so I'm actually part of many minorities. So as a woman in tech as well, it's really underrepresented, as well as I am autistic, which presents a whole different set of challenges for me. And yes, I have faced a lot of vitriol from certain groups, and it is challenging to be a minority in tech. Apart from that, I just can't find this question. Is this question answered somewhere?
No, it's in the Q&A. They were asking
Okay,
about,
open questions.
yeah.
Okay. Lionel Raps. Yeah, got it. So actually, when you have this is actually something that I use as my personal brand. So when you're going into the world of professional coding, there is something that you hear a lot. It's how to create your personal brand. And that's basically how you present yourself as a unique individual and what makes you you. And I try very hard to be unapologetically myself. And it is difficult sometimes because a lot of times people might not understand where you're coming from because it is very diverse. It is, everyone might not come from the same background as you, but thankfully there are a lot of people who are trying to encourage participation, a lot of people who are trying to be inclusive and trying to create a good environment. And I think it's great that you're asking this question, because if you could also join one of these people and make CS a more inclusive environment for other people, younger people, newer people who are just starting to code and might feel intimidated. I think that would be really great. Some challenge that I have personally faced before is there is some stereotype that I faced against women coders. And one of my achievements on my resume is that I was an intern at Google. And the particular internship is STEP internship, which is actually known for hiring minorities. And if you are a STEP intern, then in India, it's mainly for women. And so when we actually tell people that, I was a STEP intern, we brace ourselves like, okay, it's coming. Like one of the first things I hear, oh, you're a woman. Like, oh, that's why you got in. And that's more subtle. There have been someone who directly told me, you just know how to print hello world and nothing else. So there are some stereotypes, there are some challenges. I just ignore them. I just go about my day. And I think if you face people like that, you should do the same.
Okay, are you guys still good to go on?
Yeah, I see a lot of questions about is there anywhere that art meets coding? And I actually met somebody who's in a master's program for that, so I just looked it up. And there's a lot of programs called creative coding, or people doing majors in computer science but minoring it with something else, such as digital arts. But honestly, if you're not in school but you still want to do that, like there's a world of things to explore. You could do creative coding, you could create something, you can create new Instagram filters. I remember doing that as a code in place student. Probably one of my favorite memories there. But yeah, for sure, there's a lot of ways that you can incorporate art or sound, music, any of that with coding.
I think one thing that's like super niche is I would make code that would sync Christmas lights to music. And so that's a fun thing to do. But with like, if you're talking about like art as in graphics specifically, obviously there's graphics and animation, which is really cool. If you want to look into Blender, that's not like specific. I don't know if that's like specifically to coding, but like you can make really cool graphics with Blender. I took a whole class where like I made this little image where I had this cozy book nook with like a teapot and everything, and it was really fun. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do with that. I think there are workshops in graphics and animation that would be really cool if you looked those up. But I don't know any specific ones. Let's see. Sanjana, do you want to choose a question?
I think there's a question about so there's a lot of questions about where do we go after CIP is completed. I think they're asking for resources, but I think we might have covered that. Do you have anything else to add to that? Probably no more. So there's another question about how to practice communication if you are the type of person to get nervous speaking or talking to others. So what do you think about this?
I can start. When I was an intern, I had no prior experience. This was last summer, and I came into a team that had like about 5 people. And I was the only woman. I was also the only person of color, and so that was really scary. They all were senior engineers, and it was really, really hard. But I think like coming in, I had to realize like you have to really like go out there and ask for help if you do need help, but also like be very clear about what you can support your team with and be very confident in that. Like that's why they hired you, right? And so I think like having that confidence and knowing that you do belong in that space and that you have to like take in that space, like take that space. It is yours. Take that space and empower yourself through that experience. But then also like realize that you're the person that's also empowering this whole community of people who may be so inspired by your work and your experience. So I think like it's really hard to talk to people. And for me, I get really nervous. My palms get all sweaty and stuff. But like at the end of the day, if you can find something to start the conversation with, like I really like to play games. I love Mario Kart. And I started playing Mario Kart with everybody, and then we just started having conversation. Like it's really fun to do it naturally and like find that connection and that similarity, and then like building conversation from that. That's something that I suggest. Do you guys have anything you want to put in that?
Yeah, one thing I learned, it wasn't actually through like a coding or a network type of experience. I had joined a dance team in college, and then I joined the performance team, and the dance coach drilled it in me that I have to start smiling because I don't look approachable. I didn't smile much when I was younger, honestly, but I feel like that's also a really big one. Know the culture of the people around you. Will people feel more comfortable talking to you if you smile at them and look more approachable? But yeah, I guess that can relate to all forms of networking, but I did learn that through being on a dance team.
I think communication is something that I learned most by mimicking people that I felt comfortable talking to. So sometimes I saw people, I heard them speak, and I thought, wow, I want to be like that person. Like they speak so well, they said this so nicely, they put it so well. And I try to dissect, like, what did they do right? Like, why did I feel like this was interesting? Why did this feel engaging to me? And once I know the answers to these questions, I try to incorporate them in anything and everything that I'm talking about. So another thing that actually helped me become more confident is my personality was changed a lot after I joined my high school soccer team. So before that, I was very shy. I was very quiet, soft-spoken. But when I joined the team, it's just 11 girls just um, running for, towards a ball. You tackle, you chase, there's a little bit of aggression on the field. And that really helped bring out some of my confidence and my personality. And I think that experience has helped. It's just like dance helped Inessa with her confidence and communication skills. I think being on a team sport like that, it helped me learn how to communicate with other people better, because even when you're a part of the team, you have to communicate with the team members that you have.
Yeah, just bouncing off of that, I wanted to add one more thing. So I was also shy when I was younger, and I feel like sometimes it comes out with a little bit of that imposter syndrome, but it's just important to remember that there's no need for that. If someone else can do it, I could do it kind of attitude. Have confidence in the fact that you can do something, or learn it if you can't currently do it.
Oh, and something really important is that there's something called a growth mindset. So a very big reason why people get scared to fail is because they think that failing now means that they are a failure forever. But that's called having a fixed mindset. It's knowing that what you are right now is who you are. But a growth mindset is knowing that, okay, this is me right now, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to improve. That doesn't mean that if I failed right now with some effort, with some practice, maybe with some experience, I'll do much better the next time I try. And this helps you get rid of the fear of failure, because it's not absolute, it's not final. You've got more chances, you can do better next time. And taking more chances does not make you worse. It does not make you less of a person. It just means you had the courage to try again. And I think that itself is something very inspiring. So you should probably keep that in mind.
Are there any other questions that you guys want to answer?
Yeah, I see one in the chat. Can you share any memorable or challenging projects you've worked on and the lessons you've learned from them? The first thing that came to my mind is the biggest lesson I've probably learned in coding. I was hoping to fix up some of my projects before uploading them anywhere and have the code somewhere. Had everything on a flash drive. And if we can guess what happened, I lost the flash drive. So I actually don't have any of my old projects at all, none of them. So now I should probably start from scratch at some point. But once I do that and start building up some more projects, I learned to make backup copies and or upload somewhere, even if it's not finished or not perfect. Definitely a huge lesson that I learned the very, very hard way of crying because I can't find my flash drive.
I think one challenge is explaining your code to people, especially when like your team, like you're creating like for me, I was kind of doing, what do I say? I had to go through a lot of like newspaper articles, and I didn't want to read it myself. And so what I did was I created a program that calculated like word associations for me. And it was really hard for me to explain this to my team members who may not have that tech background. But I think like being in Code in Place helped me with that communication tool, and I was able to present that in a way that was very understandable and like easy to understand. And so like I think like being able to present your ideas without getting into the technical terms and like the slang words that we use in tech, like being able to present that as an idea rather than like, oh, I did this, and this.
So my favorite project is actually something that was extremely random, and it's not really. So I've mentioned that I like solving puzzles. I like doing small fun stuff with code, and one of these puzzles that I really like solving is Sudoku. And so I made a Sudoku solver. Now, it's not a very unique project. It's not something that hasn't been done. In fact, it's a very common piece of code that you use a backtracking recursive algorithm to just brute force to get a solution. But I decided that I don't want my program to do that. I thought I wanted to solve Sudoku puzzles the way I solve Sudoku puzzles. So I took that as an opportunity to sit down and make a list of the rules, map down my thought processes when I start solving a Sudoku puzzle. Like, what exactly do I think? What is my logic for knowing certain answers when I'm solving this puzzle? And then I converted all of that into code. And it was a massive piece of code. It was like Python. I don't remember how many lines it was, but it was very long. And I know I could have just solved it with a simple backtracking algorithm, but that was not the point of my project. The point of my project was to make my program more human, to make it try to be more human. And that's why it's been one of my favorite projects. It's just something that's so personal to me. It's not something impressive. It's not something very big that I did to show off my coding skills to people, but it's just something that I did for fun, for something that I really like doing. So yeah.
Okay, we should wrap up because I have something in 5 minutes, but maybe one more question and then we can wrap it up. I think like a lot of the questions are like, what else can they do more to learn beyond this? This might be a repeated question, but let me know if there's like another question you guys want to
I think there's one that's relevant in today's scene. That's, will coding still be relevant when there are so many AI programs that code for you? now that we have ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot. So what do you think? Why do we still code when there's AI that does our coding for us?
That's a hard question. I actually had that as an interview question. I was stumped. I was like, "Oh, good question. Do I support or do I not support?" This is a hard question to ask. I think for me, I always learned best doing it myself, running into the bugs, and like that's great. But I think like conceptual ideas, like let's say you don't understand what a for loop is, you need someone to like answer that for you. I'll be like, okay, explain to me like I'm a 5-year-old. What is a for loop? And ChatGPT does that really well. But I wouldn't code using ChatGPT. I think like being able to do that yourself is a huge like learning curve. So I think there are ways to use it to learn things conceptually. Like now, even in my theory courses, when I don't understand a certain like explanation or concept, that's where I go to get my explanations.
I mean, this is a little funny, but I don't have too much experience with AI or ML, but I do have a little bit of experience. And with my experience, I have learned to be very careful when using AI because people like me are the ones coding the AI, and I wouldn't trust it with my life. So there have been times AI is great. I think it's made life a lot easier for a lot of boring, monotonous things. But I remember when I had to code Prolog assignments for my coding lab. Prolog is a very old language, so you might not find too many people coding in Prolog. But when I searched for these assignment solutions, I didn't search for it, but one of my classmates did. And his solution was ridiculously complicated in a logical sense. Like I don't think humans would think of a solution in that way. It did not feel very intuitive. So that's why I didn't actually prefer using ChatGPT for my coding solutions. I feel like I might actually do a better job if I can convince myself that this is how my thought process is. It's like having someone else write your code. It doesn't feel as nice.
Okay, 3 more minutes. We'll answer one last question. Well, how do we unwind? What are some things that you guys do to unwind? I think that's a fun question to end on. I can start. I have something really weird. I like to dance while brushing my teeth. So I will put on a song for 3 minutes and I'll be dancing while brushing my teeth. And that's my favorite way to unwind before I go to bed.
I haven't been doing this lately, but hopefully this summer I'm looking forward to going on little nature walks or seeing waterfalls or something pretty outdoors.
I think, oh. Okay, Sanjana, we were just talking about how we unwind, and I think we're going to wrap up with that. Oh, no worries. You can answer in the chat if you want to. But while Sanjana answers in the chat, I just want to thank you all for joining us today. It was really fun talking with you guys. Oh, Sanjana, do you want to add how you unwind at the end of the day?
I play Genshin Impact. It's a video game. I like playing that. It's fun. I love reading books. So I'm currently reading Last Queen by an Indian author, Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. The last book I read before this was Things Fall Apart. So I really like reading. I like playing Genshin. I study Japanese to unwind. I know it might sound weird that I study to unwind, but it's very different from my usual work, my usual coding work. So it feels nice, some variety in my life.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any last words, you guys? If not, I'll wrap it up really quick.
Just that everybody can reach us if they want to, either on the forum or those of us that have the emails. So if your question didn't get answered, don't worry, don't be upset at us. You can still contact us.
But another thing is that I might reply faster if you guys are able to post it on the forum post that Emily had. You guys can just add it as a comment and then we'll go in and we'll answer as we can. But thank you for joining us. I had so much fun answering your questions. We highly encourage you to come back and share about Code in Place. So we'll see you next time, next cycle. Chris, did you want
Good luck with Code in Place, and I hope you have a fun time coding. And I hope you come back for Code in Place 2024 or whenever we have it next.
Thank you guys so much. You're wonderful. And I hope you guys, students, have a wonderful rest of Code in Place. And head TAs, thank you so much for everything you do to support our section leaders who are doing this wonderful job as well. Cheers, everyone.